14.10 came up with a huge update for League of Legends, and let me tell you, whenever it changed the game, I mean, it drastically changed the game. There's a ton of changes to the items, some of the changes to champions, some things like this. As you can see, we have the Champion Mastery update. Now, basically what it did, it uncapped the Champion Mystery levels, per split Mastery progression and rewards, per split Mastery champion sets and rewards, unlockable champion titles for level 10 Mastery. So essentially, this is the new logo. Once you get up, above level 7 and everything like that, as you can see, unlockable champion titles for the level 10, it's uncapped as it says. Now, you will basically gain levels on your mastery, just like you do in your profile on your champion. You'll get uncapped levels. It's kind of cool because whenever you flex your mastery like this now, this will show up with a number in the middle, and it'll have like a tier 1, 2, 3. It's actually kind of cool. This update, I like. Here's a little summary just basically stating what came to the rank changes. Demoting from tiers replaced players at 25, 50, 75 LP during the player's MMR at the time of demotion compared to their rank. There was a couple little changes to the rank system, pretty much the exact same thing. Players will be placed as high as Diamond 3 after provisional games, previously Emerald 1. Now, this one is a pretty big one. They basically made things like inting Scion even more worth it to do. As you can see, experience, duo plus experience, you go from 116 to 124, they buff that. The jungle monster experience, they also made the jungle a little more experience, so they kind of made jungle monster experience a little better so junglers can keep up there. Scuttle crab experience, excuse me, you also get more per level in scuttle crab experience, so that's pretty decent there. They basically gave the jungle a buff. Shared champion, kill XP, as you can see, it went from 66.82 to 100 to 66.82 to 90. So that kind of got a nerf. Gold, 2 plus kill streak gold. As you can see, they changed how much gold you get. 2 plus kill streak, it went from 450 to 678.9 1,000, 455, 678.9 to 1,000. So they kind of nerfed how much gold you get there, but it's really not that big. On the CS bounty, 50 gold to 300 extra CS, plus 50 additional, went to 50 gold to 300 plus 50 additional per 250. And the +1 Death Streak Gold. This is where it got a little dicey because of the fact that the +1 Death Streak Gold, now you actually get less gold for killing champions quicker. So the amount of deaths you get, actually you get less gold for killing people quicker. So before, you would basically into Scion or whatever you're doing in whatever dumb inting strategy. If they have, say, 10 deaths, they're only worth like 100 gold. But now you'll get less gold quicker. So if the enemy dies like 6 times in 5 minutes, then they will instantly be at the 100 gold threshold to the point where you get nothing. So that kind of changes it. I really hope it doesn't make people int more. Alright, on to the champions. These were a couple weird changes, but also kind of needed changes, and I think. So, Corki, basically, he got more base health, he got less health growth, he got more base armor, he got less armor growth, he got less base attack, he gets a slightly more attack speed, he got more mana regen, and his acquisition range went from 500 to 550. If you don't know what this is the range at which Corki acquires targets when attack moving past them. As you can see, he got his damage, physical, and magic. They changed to 100% physical and 15% true damage for his passive, which is huge because they basically removed almost all of his magic damage in this patch. So you can't build hybrid Corki anymore. And another thing you will notice, the package has been removed. One of the things that made Corki huge with his W, that you would hear that siren go off and think, oh no, Corki has his package. You have to watch out for that in the next team fight. That is completely gone. Package is no more. Couple other things we got here. They nerfed his damage on his Q. The cooldown went from 8 seconds to a straight 7 once you are max level. The mana, it cost a little bit less mana now, so that's a little bit of a buff. The missile speed, they increased the missile speed, so his Q got kind of a little bit of balancing. It got a couple nerfs, got a couple buffs. His W, the Valkyrie, mana was 80. 80 now goes up to 100. Now more consistently deals damage in all ticks. This is usually 10% damage more if your target was in the zone the entire time. Also, you'll notice damage over time now lingers for 1 second after leaving the zone, so even whenever he Ws, it's still a slight burn for 1 second, so you gotta watch out for that as well. Can no longer deal more damage than maximum target if it runs alongside Valkyrie's damaging zone. Particle effects have been scaled up to match the damage radius, and damage particles have been made less spammy. His E, the Gatling gun, it used to be 50% magic, 50% physical. Again, it is all 100% physical now. They try to remove all of his magic damage, which is kind of good because now Corki is going to be a super viable ADC and probably a decent ADC pick. His damage, as you can see, they nerfed his damage on the E a ton. It started at 120, only goes to 100, and then plus 250% bonus AD, they dropped that by 50%. So his E is doing significantly less damage, but they also lower the cooldown on it, so that's kind of a little bit of a trade-off there. The armor shred and MR, they also increase that though, so it does less damage, but it shreds armor and MR more, which could really help out if you just max your E. If you're against the Mundo or something, that could really help. The mana went from 50 all the way up to 70. Time to reach the max shred, instead of being 8 hits in 2 seconds, it was 4 hits in 1 second. So it shreds a lot harder, it shreds a lot faster, but it does slightly less damage, which I really think that's a decent trade-off. His ultimate, the Missile Barrage, the damage, it went up, and as you can see, it was 75% AD plus 12% AP, and the AP ratio was removed, and they dropped it down to 70% AD. So they gave it a little bit more base damage, got rid of a little bit of more of the AD. It's now a 70% flat rather than building up. So you have a little bit more AD in the early levels, but then on the third, at level 16, you actually have less AD. But no AP in that anymore. He costs 20 to 35 mana. His max ammo went from 7 to 4, which if you've ever played Corki, that is a big change that you're going to have to play around. The recharge rate is now 20, which also sucks. The new basic attacks on hit against champions reduce the recharge time of Missile Barrage by 2 to 4 seconds based on critical strike chance. So basically, the more crit you have, the faster you can get your Missile Barrage. So that's not bad. That's a pretty decent trade-off. If you're actually engaging and you're actually hitting your autos and everything else, then yes, you can easily have your ultimate up a lot more. New, leveling the ability for the first time, grants 2 ammo. Pretty obvious change there. Here, we have Cho'Gath. They basically buffed Cho'Gath jungle. That's literally the only thing they did to Cho'Gath. His damage cap against monsters is now a flat 200, and his damage cap against minions is removed, so it has no damage cap against minions at all. Which, I mean, I don't really think that was a problem before, but, I mean, his E basically got increased damage to minions and monsters. That's the entire change to him. To Cassante, base health regen growth and health growth increased, E base shield increased. As you can see, pretty self-explanatory. He gets more health, growth, and his E was increased. That's basically it. You get a bigger E shield. On the set, Set now has 100 flat damage mod to monsters. His E does 100 flat damage no matter what to monsters. That's it for Set. Pretty simple. Skarner got a lot done to him, which he kind of needed. He was a little bit OP, but a lot of things done. They changed his Q damage, his mana cost, max HP, monster cap reduced, his Q damage to structures increased, his E damage was increased, his ultimate cast time was decreased, his unstoppable status was removed. When you're ulting, you're no longer unstoppable, but you can now Q other abilities while winding up. So, quickly go over it. His Q, Shattered Earth Upheaval, damage started at 10 and went to 50. It now starts at 10 and went to 50, but it also gives you 1% less bonus HP. So if you have more health, your Q does slightly less damage because of the bonus HP, which was also part of the problem, because he could go full tank and still murder you in a heartbeat. The mana cost went from 30 to 50. It is now a flat 30. Damage to structures went from 50 to 100%. So Skarner might be a viable split pushing item anymore, or a choice right now, just because of that in general. And the percent max HP monster cap went from 150 to 450. It is now 150 to 350. That just slightly went down. His E damage went from 30 to 150. That stayed the same, but as you see, 10% of his max HP went to 8% of his max HP, which these don't seem like big things, but if you take away 2% HP damage on somebody that has 6,000 health, it starts to add up. As you can see, his ultimate, his cast time went down, which is kind of nice. Skarner's no longer unstoppable while winding up in Pale. So basically, when you're stopped and you're frozen because you have to wind it up, you're no longer unstoppable. You can be stunned, you can be hit, you can be anything. But now, he can queue up other items, which is basically just his W. Q and E still cannot be cast while impaling an enemy champion. Fix the bug where Mark Dash can be recast during impale. So you can use your W while you're using your ultimate, which could help because you're no longer unstoppable, but you can give yourself a shield while you're casting your ultimate. Couple of the things that I think are really weird because these champions did not need a buff. Tryndamere, his passive got a 50% increase on your critical strike chance now. Instead of being 40 at full percent of your fury, it is now 50% based on your fury. So if you have full fury, level 1 Tryndamere, you automatically have 50% crit. Our goal is for him to hit 100% crit at 2 items and full fury. So basically he turns into Yasuo and Yona full fury, which we'll get to them in a minute. Viego, his Q healing for minions was increased. Really not a bad change there. I don't think he needed any more just because he was already strong as it is, but this will just give him a little bit more sustain in the jungle. But as you see, it is 10 to 50%. That is a ton of healing. Like, he already had enough healing whenever he engaged on you, and he could heal for 3/4 of his health. But they made it 40% more on minions, so do with that information with what you will. Now, for the two that I'm really, really confused about. Yasuo and Yun, they both have the same passive critical strike multiplier. As you know, they are brothers. They do the exact same thing. You get 2 items, and boom, you have 100% crit no matter what. As you can see, the critical strike chance multiplier went down 2.5 to 2 on both of them, so they only have a 2 times critical strike multiplier. But their bonus AD for excess crit went up 10%. The things that make Yasuo and Yun broken are once you get the 2%, and then when it says excess critical strike chance, so if you have 100% crit, and you actually have 110%, say, because, you know, Yasuo and Yone, every time you get more crit than 100%, it goes into bonus AD, which is what makes them strong, because you just build any crit item, and you automatically get a huge amount of bonus AD. They increased that by 10%. In my opinion, Yasuo and Yone were already super strong, and now they're even stronger. So, I mean, it was kind of iffy. I see what they did, though. They increased critical strike, or they lowered the critical strike by half, because a lot of the new items, and they're changing the items and everything, they're getting like 20 and 25% crit chance. So they lowered their crit chance multiplier, which is nice, because if they didn't lower that, it would make the bonus AD even worse, because you would be getting 50% more crit strike multiplier. So if you would normally have 100 and they didn't lower that, you'd probably have like 125%. So they kind of balanced it out a little bit there, but that's still just going to make Yasuo and Yone super broken. Corrupting Pot was removed. Kind of a useless item. There was only very few people you would start it on. Here we get into the items. The items are the biggest change in this patch. Like, there are so many item changes, so buckle up. Enchanter items, the Dawn Core, brand new item. Or not brand new item, new things with it. Dawn Core was initially conceived as Enchanter Capstone. Okay, we're not going to go over that. The build path, the 2 Bangled Ass Smears, 2,700 gold, and now it is a Blasting Wand and 2 Forbidden Idols, same amount of gold. The heal and shield power is now 16%. That's new. They added that. Ability power went from 40 to 60. The base mana and regeneration went down 50%. The first light, 3% HS and 5% AP per 100 base mana regeneration is now 2% and 10 AP. So they increased the 10 AP. They increased the AP by double, but then they lowered by 1%. They removed the Summoner Spell Haste 18. They removed that, and they removed the Ability Haste. That is the Dawn Core. I haven't really used that item much, but decent change to that. I mean, like I said, I've never used it. I don't know how that's actually going to affect it, but they added heal and shield power, so that makes me think that it's just going to be a straight support item now. The Echoes. Max stacks, you now only have 2. Damage per stack is now 60. The heal per stack is now 75. Fix the bug where it would damage enemies and still pop their spell shields. Now spell shields will block the proper damage. Excuse me. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but they lowered the stacks, which kind of can hurt some people, but then they increase the damage and increase the healing, so you get less stacks, but you get more out of those stacks. The Battle Song, they lowered the move speed by 5%, and they lowered the ability power by 5. Not a huge nerf to people, but if you're a support or you're like a middle lane or somebody that's supposed to build that, it might affect you quite a bit, because that move speed probably, a lot of people probably relied on that. People like Twisted Fate or Vigar, some people that built those, that might hurt. Tank items, big one here. Anathema's Chains was completely removed. Warmogs, yet another thing here that was kind of iffy to me. I mean, I can see how it works out, but it's just a weird item to change. Like, I never see a lot of people build Warmogs unless it's like Mundo, but they move the health from 750 to 1,000, so you get even more. They kept the gold at 3,100, which was kind of nice. But then the health per 5 seconds went down from 200 to 100%, which, I mean, a lot of people would rely on that kind of because they would just build it on like Garen or Mundo, and like I said, they would just regen so much health. But I think getting the extra 250 health out of it is a nice balance. The Fimbulwinter. This one was really, really good on both of these. They got buffed a lot, and let me tell you, I think these are going to be 100% built items on any tank that is against the mage now. The Fimbulwinter, the health went from 400 to 550, which is a huge change. And then the Awe, 8% max mana as bonus HP went to 15% bonus mana as HP. So your bonus mana is going to give you 15% bonus health. Again, any tank, boom, right there. Winner's Approach. It used to be a tier Kindle Gem and a Ruby Crystal. It is now a tier Kindle Gem and a Giant's Belt, so it's going to give you more health. The gold cost is unchanged. The health goes from 400 to 550, and the Awe is the exact same because the Fimbulwinter just builds into the Winner's Approach. Or vice versa. Yeah, they go vice versa. Balmy Cinder. It used to be 2 Ruby Crystals and is now a Ruby Crystal and a Glowing Moat. The price lowered by 100, which is nice, but they also lowered the health from 300 to 200, so that's kind of a little bit of a nerf there for the tanks that build that, but it gives you 5 ability haste. Hollow Radiance, they lowered the health by 150, but they also gave you 10 ability haste. Sunfire Aegis, the health goes from 500 to 350, but they also give you 10 ability haste. It kind of seems like they want tanks to be fighting more and using abilities more, but they don't want them to live as long. Randuin's. This one was kind of a shock to me. Health 400 to 350. The armor goes from 55 to 75. The humility cooldown 60 seconds to 90 seconds, so that is a huge nerf. The humility slow is 55 to 70, so you get a little bit more slow. And they removed Rock Solid completely. Unending Despair, the Anguish trigger rate from 7 seconds to now 5 seconds. The Abyssal Mask, they lowered it 100 gold. They gave it 10 less magic resistance. Unmake, 8.6 to 25 magic resist is now just a flat minus 20 magic resist. Unmake radius, 550 to 600. If you don't know what Unmake is, the Abyssal Mask basically makes people take more damage when you're around them. They take more magic damage in the area around you. So the Unmake, 8.6 to 25 magic resist based on bonus health, went to 20 magic resist, and the radius went to 600. So 600 units around you will be getting the effect. The Unmake magic resist, 9 per enemy, now went to 10 per enemy. And the new, unique with Void Staff and Crypt Bloom. The Knight's Vow. The build path changed from a Kindle Gem Chain Vest to a Kindle Gem Chain Vest and a Rejuvenation Bead. The new gold cost is unchanged, which is kind of weird because they added the item. You still get the Kindle Gem and the Chain Vest, but now you added a Rejuvenation Bead. So they just basically buffed the Knight's Vow with no gold cost change. You get the 100% base health regen from the Rejuvenation Bead. The armor went down by 5, though, which is kind of, you know. You don't really build Knight's Vow just for the armor. You build it just to give your teammate a little bit of help there. Damage reduction, 10% and then 20% below 30 HP is now 12% always. That's kind of a big nerf because, I mean, if you were below 30% and it gave you even more, it kind of helps you stay alive a little bit longer, but now you're at 12% always. Damage is now reduced by the Knight's armor /MR. Zeke's Convergence, we're giving it the same build path as a Locket. It's pretty hard for tank supports to build multiple items and a lower gold income. Build path is a Kindle Gem and a Glacial Shroud, which is now a Kindle Gem, Cloth Armor, and a Null Magic Mantle. The gold cost is unchanged. The health went up 100. The armor went down 5. New Magic Resist, 25 Magic Resist. Ability Haste went down 10. And the mana, 250. You don't get mana from Zeke's Convergence anymore. So you get no mana and you get 25 Magic Resist. Mage items. The build path used to be a Needlessly Large Rod, a Verdant Barrier, and 150. It is now 100 gold more. But as you see, the total gold cost is unchanged, which is kind of weird because it went from 150 gold to 250 gold. But, you know, it is what it is. Maybe we'll see one of these a little cheaper. The Blackfire Torch. This is one of my favorite items I now build on 90% of mages. The Blackfire Torch basically gives you a brand passive every single time you hit somebody. So the mage item system is lacking a strong mana option for sustained damage dealers. Yes, it was. The Blackfire Torch, basically, like I said, you hit somebody, it lights them on fire. The Faded Ashes is what builds into it, but we'll get there in a second. The build path is a Lost Chapter, Faded Ashes, and 700 gold, 2800 cost, 90 ability power, 600 mana, 25 ability haste, The Baleful Blaze. Dealing damage with abilities causes enemies to burn for 20 plus 2% AP magic damage per second for 3 seconds. Deals 20 bonus damage per second to monsters. Think about that for a second. 20 plus 2% AP magic damage. I build this on Vigar. I hit people with a Q, they're burning for 3 to 400. Late game, you can burn them for like 500 damage because 2% of your AP magic damage on Vigar when you have 200 stacks is insane. I'm just saying, this item right here is going to be super broken for burst mages. And I've already played it with a lot of burst mages. It definitely is broken for burst mages. Now, as you can see, for each enemy champion, epic monster, and large monsters affected, gain 4% AP. What does this mean, you might ask? If you have the entire enemy team lit up with your Blackfire Torch, like say you're playing Brand and you actually lit them all on fire, you gain 20% AP. Every single champion. Epic monster or large monster. So if you're fighting red buff, if you're fighting champions, if you're fighting Baron, if you're fighting dragon, you get 4% HP, or 4% AP on top of your regular AP. For every single one of those you have lit up. If you're fighting dragon and you light them every single enemy champion on fire and the dragon on fire, you have 24% AP. Extra. Bonus on top of them getting bled by all of that. So you gain that extra 24%. Boom. It's applied to your Baleful Blaze as well. So this is a broken item right now. The Faded Ashes, which is what builds into the Balefire, the Blackfire. The build path is an Amplifying Tome and 500 gold. Ability power is 40, and then dealing damage with abilities cause them burn for 7 magic damage per 3 seconds. Deals 20 bonus damage per second to monsters. So basically, this gives you the burn, and then when you upgrade to the Blackfire, that's when you get the bonus AP magic damage. Kinda nice. Luden's Companion, no longer a charge model, unique load is removed, and now has a 12-second cooldown and always fires with 6 shots. So they basically turned it back into the Ludens that we know and love, but it's not. It's still not a Luden's Echo, don't get me wrong. It's decent, but they removed the charges, which was nice, and now has a 12-second cooldown and always hits 6 shots. Fire base damage, 45 plus 4% is now a 60 plus 4%, so they definitely gave that a buff. Repeat damage ratio on primary target went from 35 to 50, so they buffed the damage. They removed the charge and buffed the damage a little bit. Leandries. Building path used to be a Haunting Guise, a Blasting Wand, and 850. It is now a Haunting Guise, Faded Ashes, and 800. Total gold is unchanged. That is a really nice update because of the fact that you now get the Faded Ashes, so the Leandries, you get a little bit of a burn before you get the full burn. I've always wanted that with the Leandries just because of the fact that, like, the build path should have a burn. I hate waiting and waiting and waiting until you have, like, the entire thing at 3,100 gold to get a little bit of a burn. So that you can start the Faded Ashes, get the little bit of the burn, get the Leandries, and then boom, you get the big burn. The Verdant Barrier. Total gold cost, they lowered it by 100. Do you remember up whenever we were just looking at the other thing for Banshees that I said, hey, maybe they're going to lower the gold by that one of those? Boom. Verdant Barrier is now 1,600 gold instead of 1,700. The build path, a Null Magic Mantle, Tome, and a Tome, is now Null Magic Mantle, an Amplifying Tome, and 350 gold. So they literally just changed the 100 gold that you need and put the total gold cost down to 1,600. Fighter items, yet again. Fighter items is another thing that got weirdly buffed and nerfed and updated, and it's a whole thing. Overlord's Bloodmail is new. The build path is a Tunneler plus 1,000 gold. Pretty simplistic there. Total gold's 3,300. Attack damage is 40. Health is 500, which is huge. Tyranny, gain 2% of your bonus health as attack damage. If you've ever played Mundo, you know how strong that man is going to be with this and a Heartsteel. He's going to one-hit you. And then Retribution, gain up to 10% increased attack damage based on your percent missing health. Maximum Retribution bonus while below 30% health. Basically, if you have a lot of health, Scion, Mundo, this is a very strong item. It is going to give you a ton of attack damage that is just very unnecessary, but it definitely makes the people that are just healthy a lot stronger. Blade of the Ruined King. This one was huge. Attack damage went from 40 to 55. The attack speed went from 25 to 30. The lifesteal went from 8 to 10. Really big buffs there. The passive Mystic Edge, it went down from 12% and 9% to 9% and 6%, so that got kind of changed. Passive, Clawing Shadows. Your next basic attack on hit an enemy champion. Okay, went from 30 to 15. That went to 30 to a 15-second cooldown. And passive Mission Edge monster cap went from 60 to 100. So now it does more damage to monsters as well. Black Cleaver, the armor reduction went from 5 to 6, so that gives you a little bit more of a good thing to use on bruisers. And then max armor reduction is 25 to 30%, so you get a lot more armor reduction with a Black Cleaver. Boots. Boots also have an interesting update. They came out with a new boot, which is kind of nice. Total gold went from 1100 to 1000. They lowered it. They gave you more armor, and they also gave you basic attack reduction 12 to 8%, which that really stings because it was really fun building bladed steel caps against like ADCs and literally not having to worry about the game. Boots of mobility have been removed, but why have they been removed? Because we got symbiotic souls. Total gold is 900, move speed is 35. Your recall is empowered after traveling 150,000 units, upgrades to synchronized souls. So you get rewarded for walking around. It's like buying a Fitbit. You just get rewarded for walking around. Synchronized souls, your move speed goes to 45, your recall is empowered, and you gain 45 move speed when out of combat. So basically, once you get the synchronized souls, they turn into mobility boots. Now, you says your recall is empowered. It goes from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. It still has a special recalled animation. It is not like Baron that is only 3 seconds. It is 5 seconds, but still, many, many times, that 2 seconds can save your life. On to the marksman items. They basically reverted Bloodthirster back to the old way it was. The build path was a BF Sword, a Cloak, and a Vampiric Scepter, plus 600. It's now a BF, Pickaxe, Vampiric Scepter, and 325 gold. Now this part's kind of weird. Total gold cost is unchanged. The attack damage went from 55 to 80. Yeah, let that sink in. 55 to 80. Huge attack damage buff. No longer grants extra AD above 70% health. That's fine. That wasn't really a big thing. And nowadays, you literally get below 70% by just looking at an ADC. New. Converts excess healing from lifesteal into a shield, up to 50 to 400 based on level. What do you know? They turned it back into old Bloodthirster. Crit chance, 20% is now removed. Up next, we got changes to the Collector. Collector is a really good item to bridge some champions, blah, 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 blah. Build path went from a Serrated Dirk, Pickaxe, Cloak of Agility, and 625 gold to now a BF Sword, Serrated Dirk, Cloak of Agility, and 300 gold. Total cost went up from 3,100 to 3,200. The attack damage went from 55 to 60. Lethality went down 1, which is really not that bad. And then critical strike chance went from 20 to 25. Pretty decent change to the Collector. Made it a little bit stronger. Essence Reaver, build path was a Sheen, Caldfelds, and a Cloak of Agility. It's now a BF Sword, Caldfelds, and Cloak of Agility. That kind of nerfs some champions. Like, I can think of a few people that the Essence Reaver was kind of decent on, like Draven being one, but Ezreal probably is going to be affected most by that Essence Reaver. Takes away the Sheen. That was a really big thing on Ezreal. You know, you hit the Q, you hit the auto, you hit the W, you hit the auto, the Sheen procs, it does a little bit more damage, but yada, yada, yada. The total gold cost went from 2,900 to 3,200. Pretty big jump there. It is no longer a Spellblade item. New, the basic attacks refund 15 plus 10% bonus AD mana on hit. That's kind of big. That's going to be a lot of mana regen. Critical strike chance went from 20 to 25%. If you remember, I mentioned earlier about all the crit items getting a little bit more crit. That's why they kind of changed Yasuo and Yone's from 2.5 to 2. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Ability haste went from 20 to 25, and the attack damage went from 60 to 65. So they took away the Sheen. They added 300 gold, but they also gave you more mana, crit, ability haste, and attack damage. So the Essence Reaver kind of got a buff. The Immortal Shield Bow. The build path was a Pickaxe, Cloak of Agility, Vampiric Scepter. It is now a Pickaxe, Noon Quiver, and 725 gold. The total gold cost is unchanged. The critical strike chance went from 20 to 25%. The attack damage went from 50 to 55, and then the lifesteal went from 12% to removed completely, which was kind of weird because, I mean, it like half the reason you built a shield bow was so you got the heal and the shield. So I mean that's kind of big too. Like people like Yasuo and Yone, again, that was one of their core items. It's going to be interesting to see how that changes with them. Infinity Edge, the total gold cost went up 100. You get 5% more crit chance and also 15% attack damage. Infinity Edge, that is a huge buff. That was already big on champions like Jhin and Yasuo and Yone and all of them. And it just got even stronger. Yikes. The Kirkea Shard was removed from the game completely, no longer going to have energized attacks. The Kraken Slayer. Bunch of stuff happened to the Kraken Slayer. They changed the build path to a Rectrix, a Heartbound Axe, a Recurve Bow, and 200 gold. The total gold cost went up 100. The critical strike chance went from 20% to removed. You no longer get crit chance on a Kraken Slayer, but instead you get move speed, which is kind of a weird trade-off because I don't know how that's going to help a lot of people. The attack damage went from 40 to 50. Attack speed went from 35 to 40. So you're going to get a little bit more attack speed. You're going to be able to proc that passive a little quicker with the attack speed. You get a little bit more move speed to run people down. So I mean, it's kind of an even trade-off there. Bring it down. Every third basic attack deals additional physical damage on hit, increasing when hitting the same target repeatedly. It went to every third basic attack deals additional physical damage on hit, increasing when hitting lower health targets. So if you hit the same target, it does not increase anymore. It's only on lower health targets. So the Kraken Slayer rewards you for finishing them off rather than attacking the same person. And the Ornn upgrade makes you go from 45 to 55%. So that is a big change to the Kraken Slayer. Definitely made that a lot stronger. Lord Dominic's Regards. This one kind of annoyed me because it's so hard to fight full tanks, and they basically made it harder. The armor pen went from 35 to 40, which is good. Crit chance went from 20 to 25. Again, good. Attack damage 40 to 45. Good. But they removed the one thing that made it Lord Dominic's. It no longer deals increased health or increased damage based on the target's max health advantage. What other reason did you build a Lord Dominic's other than, okay, this guy has 10k health, I have 1,000, I need to do a lot more damage to him, so I'm going to build a Lord Dominic's. What do you do now? There's nothing that deals more damage based on the max health advantage. You got to play like Vayne, or you have to play Kog'Maw, or you got to play Varus. You have to play somebody now that does percent based in their kit. We no longer have a Lord Dominic's in the bot lane. Mercurial Scimitar. Excuse me. They kind of made the Mercurial Scimitar the way that it used to be before they changed it again. They changed the build path to a Quicksilver Sash, a Pickaxe, a Scepter, and 225 gold. The total gold went from 3 to 3,300, which kind of sucks. The crit chance is now removed, and the lifesteal is 10%. If you remember way back when, it's honestly not that long ago, but the Mercurial Scimitar used to have that exact same thing. Used to have a little bit of lifesteal, used to give you the Quicksilver Sash so you can get out of CC. It was kind of nice. They changed it to crit, and now they just basically changed it back. They changed the Bloodthirster to crit, and now they changed it back. So it's kind of nice to see some of these OG items are coming back in and reverting back to the way that they were because they just worked better the way they were. Mortal Reminder got 5% more crit chance. Not too bad there. That's pretty decent. Again, you know, Mortal Reminder passive. The only reason you build it is just to get those grievous wounds, so it's nice to see they got a little bit of a crit chance buff. I'm pretty sure everything that got 20% crit is now 25%. Again, that's why they changed the Yasuo and Yone multiplier from 2.5 to 2, because they gave everything 5% more crit. So that's essentially what's going on here. Also brand new, the Navori Flicker Blade. Used to be Navori Quick Blades. They basically just kind of reworked it. The path used to be a BF Sword, Caldfeld's Hammer, Cloak of Agility, and 300. It is now a Dagger, Zeal, Dagger, and 900 gold. The total cost went from 3,300 to 26, making it much cheaper. The crit strike again went from 20 to 25. The cooldown reduction refund went from 12 to 15. Huge buff on that. There's now 7% move speed and 40% attack speed, but it removed the 65 AD and the 15 ability haste. So you don't get flat AD anymore. You get a little bit of crit chance. You get the cooldown reduction. You get move speed and attack speed. Kind of seems like a big hit with that 65 attack damage removed. But when they give you 5% more crit and 40% attack speed, that's just basically going to be, again, more for people that are like Tryndamere or people like that just rely on their abilities much more than they rely on damage. Getting those autos off on some people like Vayne is much more important than having more attack damage, because your third auto is going to do much more than that flat 65 attack damage will. The Noon Quiver. They changed the build path from a longsword dagger, longsword 300, to a longsword cloak of agility and 450. So now the longsword now the Noon Quiver gives you 20% crit chance. They removed the basic attack, deal 20% physical damage on hit against minions and monsters. So they just basically give you 20% flat crit and remove that bonus damage. Phantom Dancer, we have a Zeal, a Rectrix, and 800 gold, to a Dagger, Zeal, Dagger, and 900 gold. The total gold dropped by 200. You get 2% more move speed, 5% more crit chance. They removed the 20 attack damage, and they gave you 30% more attack speed. Again, this is another one of those items that basically, if you need to get your attacks off faster, rather than have flat damage, that's another item you're going to want to build. Rapid Fire Cannon went from Longsword Zeal and a Cur Chase to 850 to a Zeal Scout Slingshot and 600 gold. The total gold went from 3,000 to 2,600. Crit strike went from 20 to 25 again. Attack damage went from 30, was removed, and now attack speed is 20 to 35. So they're making all of these items that give you crit and attack speed solely that purpose of getting crit and getting attack speed. They removed the attack damage, which I don't think is bad, because if you're playing a quote-unquote crit build and you get flat AD, you're getting the best of both worlds, which could essentially make people like every ADC, it can give you an unfair advantage. You know, like if you get flat crit and flat attack damage and you're fighting somebody that's, you know, maybe like a mid laner or something, or a tank that mid laner only gets a little bit of AP, or the tank only gets a little bit of armor, you're overpowering them by a lot by getting crit chance and 30 attack damage out of it, because you get the crit, and then if you actually hit your crits, then like, you know, it's just null and void. Their items don't even matter because you're just going to be so far ahead. Renon's Hurricane, the build path went from a recurve, a Zeal, and 1,000 gold to a Zeal, a Scout Slingshot, and 600 gold again. Here we see the Scout Slingshot coming in again. The total gold went from 28 to 26, so that lowered a little bit. The on-hit magic damage was 30 and now is removed. The bolt AD damage scaling went from 40 to 55, and the crit went from 20 to 25%. So they changed that a little bit. They removed the on-hit, but they gave a lot more AD damage scaling on the extra bolts, and the crit chance went up 5%, which is a pretty big buff to the Runan's Hurricane. Static Shiv, they removed the crit chance. Kind of weird. Like, seems to be kind of weird. They came out with a Static Shiv again, reworked it a little bit from its original design, and now they removed the crit chance. That used to be the #1 thing to start on Yasuo every single game. Like, if you didn't start a Static Shiv, you were basically getting made fun of during the game. They changed the build path from a Noon Quiver, Cloak of Agility, and a Shard, and 300 gold, to a Scout Slingshot again, a Heartbound Axe, and 700 gold. Some Heartbound Axe means that you're going to be getting a little bit of extra health with that as well. Total gold cost was unchanged. The crit strike chance went from 20% to removed. The attack speed again went from 30 to 40. The Electro Spark new passive. Killing non-champions fires Chain Lightning that deals 90 magic damage, hitting up to 6 additional targets. 3-second cooldown, 500 bounce range. So basically you get the Static Shiv proc not when you hit something, but whenever you will kill something. So when you kill a minion, it does the 90 damage to 6 additional targets. So whenever you kill it, it'll automatically hit every minion in the wave, and also a champion minus a cannon wave. 3-second cooldown. So every 3 seconds you kill something, it will shock, which is kind of quick, to be honest. Electro Shock, takedowns on champions instead deal 3-time damage and has no cooldown, no bounce cap, technically 186 if you want to know, and 650 bounce range. So essentially deals 3-time damage, has no cooldown, no bounce cap. Basically you can bounce 186 times is what that's saying. The Electro Shock, so whenever you kill a champion, it'll do 3 times damage and just hit everybody. So that's going to be massive in team fights. Storm Razor, straight up removed from the game. Get it out of here. Nobody wanted it. The Terminus, rather a new item as well. It's getting a new recipe this time around, as well as some alternation in stats. It was a recurve, a BF, a recurve, and 300. It is now a Heartbound Axe, recurve, and 1,000 gold. Total gold cost is unchanged. It got 5 less attack damage and 5 more attack speed. They're really focusing on getting more attack speed and more crit in this patch than they are flat damage. The Voltaic Cyclosword. The build path was a Brutalizer, a Shard, and 863 gold, to a Brutalizer, Longsword, and 863 gold. Gold cost is unchanged. Another new item, we have the Yunton Wild Arrows. Build path is a Pickaxe, Noon Quiver, 925 gold. Crit strike 25, attack damage 65, passive Serrated Edge. Critical strikes deal 35% total AD additional physical damage over 2 seconds. So it kind of works like an AD Leandri's. Basically, you hit them, crit strikes deal 35% total AD. So, you know, 35% of your total attack damage, additional damage over 2 seconds. So when you hit them with it, they just kind of bleed for 2 seconds. Again, kind of like a AD Leandri's, which is kind of nice because we didn't really have an item like that other than not Amarillo. We didn't really have an item like that other than a Mortal Reminder, which would apply grievous wounds, but that didn't do a ton of damage. This could be a big game changer. The Zephyr. Zephyr is often forgotten about, in my opinion. I don't really see that many people building it. Build path, Berserker's Greaves, 2,000 gold. Total gold is 3,100. Upgrade from Berserker Greaves that become available after you reach level 15. Look at that. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't the old Zephyr? Oh, Zephyr's back. Okay. So they came back out with the Zephyr, but they just reworked it. Okay. I didn't think they ever removed the Zephyr. It still counts as boot slot item. Attack speed 45, move speed 45, gain 5% move speed for 6 seconds, stacking up to 15%. Wow. Okay. So you essentially have to build Berserker Greaves and then also do 2,000 gold, but it counts as boots. That's kind of interesting. So the Heartbound Axe, I guess you don't get health with a Heartbound Axe. I don't know why I thought that. They changed the path because they definitely made that geared more towards ADCs this season. Build path was a dagger, longsword, dagger 200. It's now a longsword, dagger, longsword 300. Total gold cost went up 150. Attack damage went up 5, and attack speed went down 5. So it's kind of a hit and miss there. You pay less, or you pay more, you get less attack speed. But let's be real, if you're building the Heartbound Axe just for the attack speed, it's kind of weird. It's also a direct nerf into the Triforce, which will be also interesting to see how that works. The recurve bow. Oh, that's nifty. It does magic and now physical on hit, which that always kind of made sense to me. Because it's a bow. Why would a bow not do, like, what? Okay, yeah, so that just changed magic to physical. Doesn't really change much other than the fact that now it kind of helps out mages like Diana or Teemo. Because if you build on Nashor's, it's now going to do physical and magical. So you're going to hurt a little bit more than you should with a recurve bow. That's interesting. All right, here we got the Scout Slingshot we've been hearing so much about. The build path is a dagger and 600 gold. Total gold cost is 900. It gives you 20% attack speed. It's got a passive. Damaging a champion deals an additional 40 magic damage. Attacks reduce this cooldown by 1 second. So the Scout Slingshot is essentially another recurve bow. It gives you attack speed, and it does 40 magic damage. Attacks reduce this cooldown by 1 second. So the faster you shoot, the faster you get that extra damage. So that's pretty interesting. They definitely went all out on the marksmans this time. The Zeal crit strike went from 15 to 20. Again, they're just increasing all the crit strike chance. Like, seems like a pretty good time to be an ADC main right now, I'm not going to lie. The dagger went from 12 to 10%. They kind of nerfed the dagger a little bit. That'll help out in the early game a lot because people, again, like Yasuo and Yone, that literally auto attack you 3 times and you're half HP, or Tryndamere that auto attack you twice and you're half HP. That'll kind of help not get murdered by them so fast. Summoner spells, Ghost cooldown went from 210 to 240. That was a big nerf to some top laners. Duration 15 seconds to 10 seconds. A huge nerf to Ghost. Cleanse, cooldown went from 210 to 240. Tenacity 65 for 3 seconds is now 75 for 3 seconds. So I guess that kind of is a nerf and a buff to Cleanse. It takes longer, but you also get a tenacity buff by 10%. Not too shabby. Exhaust, cooldown went from 210 to 240. Again, another nerf to that. The slow went from 30 to 40%. So they're slower, but it also takes longer for exhaust to come back up. Barrier, duration, they increased it to 2.5 seconds. Not too bad there. The shield went from 105 to 140 to 120 to 180. So barrier actually got a buff of a half a second and decent buff to the shield. Heal, the range went from 826 to champion edge to 900 to the champion center. That's kind of weird, but 826 to the champion edge to 900 to the champion center. So they kind of increased the range a little bit, but they just kind of moved where it goes almost. That's kind of what it seems like. Domination Rune Tree. Predator has been removed. People like Hecarim are crying right now. Halo Blades, the attack speed went from 110 to 80% range to 110, or no, it went from 110 flat to 80% range and 100% melee champions. Thank you. Halo Blade's Vein was getting super annoying, which that's not bad. Usually ranged champions do have less on these type of things, so it's nice to see that they updated that to change that as well. Igneous Hunter, removed from the game. Sudden Impact kind of has a really long paragraph here. Dealing damage to an enemy champion within 4 seconds of a dash or blink or exiting from stealth grants 9 lethality and 7 magic pen for the next 5 seconds and a 4-second cooldown. They changed that to damaging basic attacks, not dealing damage. Damaging basic attacks and ability damage Deal 20 to 80% based on level bonus true damage to an enemy champion within 4 seconds of using a dash, blink, or exiting from stealth. So they changed it from 9 lethality and 7 magic pen to 20 to 80 damage based on level true damage. Which, give or take, could be a nerf and or a buff. Depends on how much lethality and magic pen you actually need. But 20 to 80 bonus true damage to enemy champion within 4 seconds. That's kind of seems like a nerf to sudden impact for me. Relentless Hunter out of combat movement speed 5 plus 8 per stack went to 0 plus 8 per stack. So you need stacks for Relentless Hunter to give you actually any out of combat movement speed. Lethal Tempo was removed from the game. Some people like Zaya that almost relied on Lethal Tempo. That's gonna hurt. Press the attack, changed it so hitting an enemy champion with 3 consecutive attacks deals 40 to 180 based on level bonus adaptive damage and amplifies your damage dealt by 8% until you leave combat. That is a decent change because it caused them to take 8% increased damage from all sources, which now it only takes 8% damage from you, which is kind of nice because you're the one that's got PTA, so it kind of makes sense. Overheal was completely removed from the game. We've been unhappy with this rune when it's strong, but it's a very low pick rate when it's not overturned, so we're replacing it. Fair enough. They're replacing it with Absorb Life. This new rune is aimed to give Precision Tree users a way to heal back up between skirmishes. Killing a target restores 2 to 17 health. Basically, you turn into Cho'Gath. That's kind of nice, though. We'll be using that on a lot of ADCs. Legend Tenacity has been removed from the game, but they added Legend Haste. Gain 1.5% Legend Stack bonus. Legend Stack bonus basic ability haste up to 15 at max stacks. So you just get a ton of ability haste with Legend Haste, which, I mean, that's a nerf to tanks, but at the same time, it could be a buff to tanks, because if the tanks have a shield ability, then that just kind of helps. The cut down was changed from 5 to 18% damage to 8% damage except true damage to champions above 60% maximum health. So that doesn't change the amount of maximum health that they have more than you. Now it changes to champions above 60% maximum health. So if they have more health in general on anybody, ADC or tank, it does 8% increased damage. Again, that whole design was made so that you could help kill tanks. Why are they, like, buffing tanks inadvertently? ADCs can no longer take down tanks with a lot of health. Nothing helps. Fleet Footwork, the heal went from 10 to 30. 10 to 130 to 8 to 110. They nerfed that. Movement speed duration went from 1 to 1.25. You get more move speed, but you get less healing. Kinda sucks. The Font of Life, slowing or immobilizing an enemy champion, heals you and a nearby ally with at least 10 to 50 health, 70% for ranged users to a 20-second cooldown. It used to give a basic attack marked against enemies that are healed for 5 plus 0.9% of your maximum health over 1.75 seconds. So it now heals you for a flat 10 to 50 health, 70% for ranged users, and it's a 20-second cooldown. So now it heals you and a nearby ally. So it kind of gives you a little bit more and gives a flat amount rather than 0.9% of your maximum health. So you don't have to build a ton of health for that to heal anymore. As for the inspiration, Futures Market has been removed. Kind of glad to see it because it wasn't really helpful, but then we also get cash back. Get 6% gold back on purchases of a legendary item, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, if you're not buying a bunch of legendary items, I don't know if that's going to have a place. It could, though. It very well could. That's kind of nice, though. Minion Dematerializer has been removed. At this day and age in League, if you need a Minion Dematerializer, then you're basically just sitting there killing cannons on somebody who's really weak and probably should not be playing them anyway. Jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. Why is it in there twice? Anyway. New rune that rewards those who plan ahead and cook up crazy builds. There's some really powerful things you can do with this rune, but you have to be creative to unlock its potential. For each unique stat on items you have purchased, get a stacking bonus. Get 1 ability haste per stack. At 5 stacks, get 10 adaptive force. At 10 stacks, get 25 adaptive force. Damn! For each unique stat on items you have purchased, get a stacking bonus. So it says unique stat on items you have purchased. If you have attack speed on one item, but none of the other items, you get a stack. If you have lifesteal on one item and none of the other ones, you get a stack. That's basically what it's saying, is like, the more items you have that have adversity, like armor pen, if you have magic pen, if you have attack speed, lifesteal, that's what gets this. You know, you have to diversify your build for this to even be useful. The Time Work Tonic no longer reduces the healing of potions, which is nice. The upfront healing went from 30 to 40%, which is nice, and remove the bonus movement speed for the duration of potions. That isn't really a game changer. The Time Work Tonic, the whole thing was getting that instant healing, so like whenever, you know, you're on fire from an ignite, you're just like, oh, I'll be okay. First strike, the gold gain was 5 and 8% of the damage dealt, which is now 15 flat and then 4% of the damage dealt. So it rewards you more for getting the first strike, but it doesn't reward you as much for dealing damage afterwards, which is kind of okay to me. The damage amplifier went from 7 to 8%, so they nerf the damage that you, or they nerf the amount of gold you get from the damage you deal, but they also increase the damage, so that might kind of even it out a little bit. ARAM balances, there's just a ton of things like that, buffs and everything like that. ARAM's not very important to me. That is the gist of what happened here in the arena, not the arena, in everything, excuse me, everything Summoner's Rift wise. As you can see, we go the whole way from the system changes, which was the duo experience, jungle monster experience, scuttlecrab experience. They buff the jungle the entire way down to all of the ruin trees. A lot of crazy balances. A lot happened in this patch. I think they made tanks slightly stronger by getting rid of the max health for ADCs and those items. Like Lord Dominic's got that nerf. I think they made ADCs a little stronger against tanks there. But they also made ADCs super strong at the same time. So you get more crit, but you don't deal max health damage. So we'll see how that kind of evens out there. But that is the entirety of what kind of happened in these patch notes. It was a huge patch. It's the second split of the season. Let's get out there. Let's play the game. Let's go see how these things work. And I'm having fun exploring all these new items, figuring out what they do, figuring out who the good champions are. I will see you in the next video.